Hi everyone and welcome to the channel. Today we're discussing part and part design and when to choose one over the other. We're going to be looking at one model and understanding why we use something like the part, and then we're going to be looking at some other model and learning why we would use something like the part design. Now this choice can be down to preference, but there are some occasions where you actually choose one over the other because of the ease of use and the features it brings within. So I hope you're enjoying the channel, and let's have a look at these two workflows. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to the site. I also have a Ko-Fi or a coffee site that you can donate to if you so desire, and that's at ko-fi.com/MANG0. I also run a Patreon where you can subscribe and get extra content, and that's at www.patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Any money that's kindly donated will be used to expand the channel. So I'm going to show you an application where you use the part design over the part and the reasons why the part design wins in this scenario. We're in the part design at the moment. I'm going to create a new body and create a new sketch. I'm going to place it along the XY plane. The application we're going to be using is an L-shaped bracket. So for this, I'm going to use a polyline, and we're looking at the profile, which will be on the side. And basically it's just going to be an L-shaped like this. I'm not going to go through constraining. I'm just going to add that in there. I may add some simple constraints like equality constraints, make those equal, and make these two equal. So we'll make those two equal as well. And make sure we've got some horizontal and vertical. That's fine there. So that's all sorted itself out. So that shape we can extrude, or in this case, because we're in the part design, we'll pad by 50mm. Now we've got our main shape. Because we've done a pad, we've not done an extrusion. Pad and extrusion are two different things. When it comes to the base, the very first item that you place in the part design and you pad it, that's the same as extrusion. When we add extrusion on top of these faces, then something quite different happens. It does an extrusion, but it also applies a Boolean operation. So if I add a pad on here from a sketch, it's actually creating a fuse. If I add a pocket, it creates a cut. And this is automatically applied. And this is the main difference between part design and part. So for instance, in here, if I take this face and create a sketch on there and create some holes to drill or holes to mount, again I'm not constraining this, let's place that in there. So we've got something like this. I hit close. When I pocket this, we've got the length this is going into. This has created a pocket, but what it's done underneath, it's extruded out these shapes with an extrusion, and it's booleaned them with a cut against this face. If we did the same, let's say in the part, so you saw how quickly that was. Let's delete that now and do the same over in the part workbench. You notice something that I didn't move away from the part design. I was guided all the way. I was even guided into the sketch. Let's start from the part. So first of all, we need a sketch. So we've got to go to the sketcher. So that's wasted mouse movements already. New sketch and place it along the XY plane. And the same process, polyline, and create our L shape in here. So we just do this quickly. I could have used the other sketch, but I'm just going to do this in here like so. And those two are connected. So we've got something like that. Now what we do is go back to the part. So we're not pushed back into the part workflow, we actually have to go back to that. So now we have to extrude this. Click the sketch, do the extrusion, 50mm, and enter. So we have our extrusion, so more or less the same way, a few extra mouse clicks. This is where it differs. So first of all, we need to come over to the sketcher, because I want to sketch on this face or this face. And I'm going to create a sketch that's flat face to there. And we create our sketch of, again, a circle and again, a slot. So we place those slots upon there. Close that. Back to the part. And what we've got to do now, we don't have a pocket, we have an extrude. So we've got a extrude all the way through here. And it doesn't matter, we can take 5, 10 millimeters. We just do the extrusion. Make sure it's going the right way. So it's got to be in reverse. So do -10. So that's gone all the way through there. Now we take the extrude and control click the one we want to remove. So the one we want to keep, which is this one, and the one we want to remove, this one. And then we do our Boolean cut. So we've created our final shape. Notice how many mouse movements and clicks that were involved in that. A lot more than the part design, and we get this nested flow here of what's actually happened rather than a linear flow. So in this case, it'd be much quicker and easier to create this shape in the part design. So we can delete that cut and those extrusions and go back to basically a clean model. Let's take another scenario and use the part design again to start off. This time the part's going to win. So we're going to create a new body and a new sketch along the XY plane. Now what I'm looking at is an application of a quadricopter wing. So we're going from one extreme to another at the moment. And when I say wing, I mean the connection between the propeller and the main body. For that, we're just going to create a simple slot. And what I'm thinking is that we need to create this as light but as strong as possible. So that's our design intent. I don't know what framework I want in here to make this light and strong. So I need to take material away and I've got to create some kind of framework. But I might want to experiment with the framework, the configurations. Do I want cross struts or do I want just lines in here? What's going to be stronger and what's going to look more pleasing to the eye? So we've got a design intent, which is basically physical and visual. So this is where we need to do a bit of experimentation. So I know that we're going to first start off with something like this. And I might do some constraints in here because it's a bit more complex object. So we basically got this shape. We would have a connector to the motor here and a connector to the base body here, but we're not going to put those in there. We're just interested in this shape in the middle. So I'm in the part design process and I'm going to pad this about 10 millimeters. So now it's time for the framework that I want to put in the middle. Now I'm thinking that I'm going to need a center strut and I'm going to have the framework that's going to zigzag between those struts. So I can do one side and mirror it over. But I want this strut, the center strut, a different height to the framework. So let's try that. I'm going to go from the bottom upwards. So we're going to extrude up from the bottom. So I'm probably going to do a extrusion, well, in this case, a pad in reverse. So the first one I want is, I'm just going to do this quickly, is a center strut, like so. And we add some symmetrical constraints in here between these two. Obviously a more complicated model than what we showed before. Let's close that and we'll pad that. That's going forwards at the moment. I want it to go reverse. And I want to push that through the top. If I was being a bit more careful, what I'll do is actually look at fitting this actually inside here to this point here. But this is fine just for the demonstration. So we've got the center strut. Now I want to add some zigzag framing in here. Now I don't know if this framing is going to be working. Is it going to be strong enough? We don't know. So this is where the experimentation comes in. And I'm going to add that from this side this time. Or that's key to the bottom. I start from the bottom. That's it. So exactly the same. So we'll create a new sketch. And what I want to do is pull in these two. And we're going to create a zigzag pattern in here for the framing. I'm going to start with another line because we're going to have to create framing that's got basically it's walled. So it's got two sets of zigzag lines. So we can create some closed geometry, and this is going to be construction geometry. And we're going to use the polyline tool, take from this point and connect up. So what we're doing is creating the zigzag in here. Maybe connect to this line. No, let's keep going. So we've got one set of zigzags. But that isn't just what we need. Let's put some equality across here. So I'm going to take all of these and make them all equal. So we've got even lines throughout. So we've got this here. So for this to be a closed sketch, we need to add another wall. So I'm going to come in here, connect up to this line and this one, and start sketching yet another set of zigzags. And this will close up this sketch. So just think that I'm doing this, and later on our framing failed, or I wasn't happy with the results, and I wanted to change this. So I change the configuration of the zigzags, or add more lines in here, more geometry to make it more interesting or a more stronger pattern. Then this already, you can see this is quite laborious. It's going to take a while. And we've got to make sure that these are in line, etc., to make them equal, etc., etc. So we've got a closed sketch. That means that closed sketch can be padded. And we'll set that to reverse. So it's going through the reverse. And I only want to pad up, say, 8mm, like so. So it's set in there. So we've got that, and then we can use our mirror tools to mirror this over to the other side, like so, or on the horizontal. So it's like that. So we've got that. If I wanted to change that, then I would have to come into the original sketch, and then let's say I wanted to add an arc in here. We can't just add the arc. Let's use the endpoint and endpoint arc. We can't just add the arc like so. We have to create a second skin inside, and then go through and create the endpoints like so. So it's taking a long time, and then we still got to remove all this inside here with the trim tool, and remove this in here, and remove this, and by the time we've finished, it's taken quite a lot of time. If there was only a way to do this with just a single line, so for instance we created a geometry like this, and once it's all constrained up, you then can just add an arc like so, and FreeCAD will automatically thicken this. Well, there is, and this is where the part wins over the part design. Let's close that. Just going to remove all these, and I'm going to jump over to the part. We'll create the same sketch. So first of all, we'll come into the sketcher, we'll create our sketch, and this is going to be on the XY plane, and it's just going to be a simple sketch of a slot. And again, we need the inside. I'm not going to worry about constraints, we're just going to do this quickly. So we've got that there, and we'll just put a couple in, which is going to be the symmetrical constraint. Again, we come back to the part and we do the extrusion first of 10mm. Now this is where things change. I'm going to create a sketch, And I'm not going to attach it to anything. I'm just going to make sure nothing's selected and come over to the sketcher and create sketch. XY plane, okay. So it's sitting on the bottom, but it's not actually attached to this at all. And I'm going to add a line. So we'll add a line in here, like so. This is open geometry, which is fine. So I'm going to close this and come over to the arch workbench. So I'm in an architectural workbench, but I can use it with the part workbench. And this is where the part really comes to its own. So it allows for multiple workbenches to use. So if you find a tool in another workbench that does the job, you can use it in there, unlike the part design. That line, that sketch, we're going to add a wall to it. Now this looks as though it's failed, but it hasn't, because the wall is taken the default properties, because it's an architectural workbench, and it will take the defaults in there, which we can change. And I'm just going to change the width and the height to 10. Let's go for 12 millimeters because we want it above. So straight away we've got a thickened object. And if you want to change the preferences, edit preferences, and if we look down, because we're already in the arc workbench, it'll open up the preferences on the left hand side, and we've got the defaults here, and we've got the structures, length, width, etc. And we can change those in there, and that'll set those for any future walls that we create. I'm just going to leave them as they are. So we've created a wall. Now I'm going to go back to the sketcher and create the next one. So I've got nothing selected, create a sketch, XY plane again. And this time I'm going to use the polyline as I did before. Pull in some geometry. I might pull in this side here. So we've pulled in that. You can see it's in there. Use the section view. So come out to sketch view section to section view that. Let's pull in that side. Watch what happens when we add the polyline. So I don't need to come in here and create this as a walled object. All I do is add the polyline, and once I've finished, we'll add some constraints, and I might even come up to there. Let's just come into here, and we'll work our way this way, make those equal. I used a different technique here. I've used the equality rather than using the hungry selection to add the equality going across. So we've got those there. I'm just going to leave it as it is. Let's close that. And again, we've got the sketch. Come over to the arch workbench and we'll wall it. Again, come into the wall, looking at the height. And this one we want a bit smaller, so 5 mil. And a width of, say, 5 mil as well. So we've got that walled sketch in there. At the moment it isn't fused against here, but what we can do is select both of those walls, and what we do is come into arch and come down to the add component, and that adds that into that wall. So if you look at the bottom, you can see what's happened. It's added that wall in there. So inside the wall we have a sketch and another wall. So those are still editable. So that means I can go, say, into this wall sketch and add an arc like so, and close. And that will be automatically fused and added to our structure. And let's say we add more framing in here, like so, and close. And we're starting to build up a framework on this side. And the final thing we need to do is just basically come over to the part workbench and use that wall and apply a mirror and go along the XZ plane and OK that. And that's mirrored over to the other side. And if we want to, we can create another sketch and place that on top of there. But it's so much easier to create those features because we're using a part workflow that's opened up Arch Workbench, Curves Workbench, any of the other workbenches, and we can do what we want in there. It's much more flexible, but at the end of the day, you still have to come in and take these and do the end fusion. So we'll just do a union together of those. And this is the thing that the part design gives you. It gives you that automatically union each time you add a feature. And this is why you get a linear approach, because the last feature is unioned on to the next feature. It keeps you in that workflow, but it does restrict you. So I hope that's given you a couple of applications to go back to when you're deciding against part and part design. It must be remembered that you need some knowledge of FreeCAD to understand what workflow you're going down. At the end of the day, if you get to your goal, then you've done something right. Certain workflows and certain workbenches will allow you to achieve your goal in a shorter time. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I hope to see you again soon. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to the site. I also have a Ko-Fi or a coffee site that you can donate to if you so desire, and that's at ko-fi.com/MANG0. I also run a Patreon where you can subscribe and get extra content, and that's at www.patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Any money that's kindly donated will be used to expand the channel. Thanks a lot for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you again soon.